All right, let's talk about hacking. And I mean real hacking. Forget the Hollywood stuff for a second. You know, the frantic typing, the glowing green text on screen. Okay, maybe some of the green text is real, but that's beside the point. Today, we're going to strip all that fantasy away and get down to the absolute bedrock of it all. And that comes down to two things, the command line and networking. Seriously, these are the pillars that everything else is built on. So let's dive in.
So real hackers don't use a mouse. That sounds a little intense, right? Maybe even a bit elitist. But here's the thing. It's not really about that. What it's really about is a total shift in how you think about and interact with a computer. It's about ditching the comfort of that point-and-click mouse for the raw power, the incredible speed, and the direct control that you can only get from the keyboard.
And that brings us to the first big secret, you could say. If you really truly want to understand how computer systems work and, how they can be manipulated, you've got to leave that graphical point-and-click world behind. You have to learn to speak the computer's native tongue, and you do that through the command line interface, or what we call the CLI. It is, without a doubt, the most direct, most powerful way to tell a machine exactly what you want it to do. And look, getting started is way easier than you might think. Honestly, these 5 commands, this is your starter pack. Think of PWD as your little "you are here" pin on a map. LS, that just shows you what files and folders are around you. CD lets you move from one folder to another. MKDIR lets you, make a directory, a new folder. And then there's the big one, sudo. Man, sudo is like the master key. It lets you run commands with full-on administrative privileges. We're talking the keys to the entire digital kingdom.
Okay, enough talk. Let's make this real, right now. If you're anywhere near a computer, pop open your terminal or PowerShell. Go ahead, I'll wait. Now try it. Use mkdir and create a folder named Hacking. Just type it in, hit enter, no mouse allowed. That simple action, that feeling, that's your first real step into this world. Pretty cool, huh?
All right, so now you've got the basic tool, but every tool needs a playground, right? So where's ours? It's the network, the internet, the whole shebang. And just like the command line, it isn't some kind of black magic. It's really just a system built on 3 super simple ideas: addresses, doors, and rules. That's it.
Yeah, I love this quote. The internet is not magic, it's just very organized chaos. Because from the outside, it totally looks like chaos, doesn't it? Billions of devices all chattering away every single second, but deep down, underneath all that noise, it's governed by a surprisingly logical structure. And getting your head around that structure, that's the key to everything.
So where do we start? With the most basic building block of them all, the IP address. Just think of it like a street address for a house. It's that simple. Every single device hooked up to a network, your phone, your laptop, some massive web server out in a data center, every one of them has a unique IP address. It's how all the data flying around knows exactly where it's supposed to end.
Okay, so if the IP address is the house's street address, what's a port? Well, a port is just a specific door on that house. You've got a front door, a back door, maybe a mail slot. A computer has thousands of these digital doors, over 65,000 actually. And behind each door, a specific service is waiting, listening for a connection. For example, web traffic, that usually comes knocking on port 80 or 443. Email, that's typically port 25. Every door has a specific job.
All right, so you've got the address, you found the right door. Now, how do you actually have a conversation? Well, you use a protocol. A protocol is nothing more than the set of agreed-upon rules, the language for that conversation. When you browse the web, your computer is just speaking a language called HTTP to the web server. It's as simple as that. Okay, let's pause and recap. You've got the tool, the command line. You understand the playground, IP addresses, ports, protocols. Now comes the most important part of all, the mental shift. This is the moment where you stop thinking like a regular user and you start to think like a hacker.
So here's the myth. People think hackers attack websites, but the reality? It's so much more specific. Hackers don't attack websites. They attack the underlying services that are running on specific ports. They are not looking at the pretty pictures and text on the web page, no. They're probing the web server software listening on port 443, or they're poking at the database service on port 3306. That right there, that's the key to everything.
And that's why this mindset shift is so absolutely critical. Because if you miss this one single idea that your real target is a service on a port, then you're basically just stumbling around in the dark. You're guessing. It's literally like trying to break into a building by just pushing on random brick walls instead of actually looking for the doors, the windows, the weak spots.
So we've covered the tool and we've covered the playground, the command line and the network. But there's one more piece to this puzzle. We need to talk about the actual environment, the world where all of this comes together.
And that's where operating systems come into play. See, in our next explainer, we're going to dive deep into environments like Linux. You can think of it as the native habitat for hackers, the world where all these tools and concepts we just talked about, they really truly come to life. It's the last big piece you need to understand.
So, let's bring it all home. You now have the fundamental tool and the basic map of the territory. The only real question left is, what are you going to explore first? Because this whole journey, it always begins with simple curiosity.